What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. I have a lot on my mind, and before I talk about some of the topics of discussion that I have in mind for us, that I just really want to start off this video talking about my evening. Usually that's how these video goes. I talk about my evening. And in this particular evening, I was finishing up dinner. And sometimes, when after I ate, I like to take a stroll. Either take a stroll outside or take a stroll at going into my parents' place. Just a little context: I live in a separate unit from my parents' place, so we have private entrances, and so sometimes I like to walk over to their place to visit them, say hi, greet them, whatnot, because you never know like how long you get those chances, right? Those opportunities, right? We have a limited time span, right? People, your loved ones won't be here forever, and so for me in particular, I like to remind myself to go over there to say hi when I can, and when I want to, and to cherish those moments. It's really the small things. And so, like, in this particular evening, I was hanging out with my mom because she was doing the dishes because they just finished dinner, wrapping it up, and she told me that they haven't been cooking. My mom said she hasn't been cooking. She hasn't been making soup as much, and one of the reasons she said was busy, lazy. The fact that I guess the soup she makes doesn't get like the soup she makes is not drinked enough, but if that makes sense. Meaning that like her dad, my dad doesn't drink enough soup, and sometimes I don't drink any soup, and so she kind of says that because that nobody drinks the soup, she doesn't want to make it, and I told her that way of thinking or that way of living is really exhausting. I said that if you want to make soup, you should make it for yourself, and if dad and I feel like drinking some soup, we'll get some for ourselves, but you shouldn't have to make soup just because we want to drink it, right? You should make soup because you want to drink it, and if I drink it or if my dad drink it, that's a bonus. That's even better, right? But you shouldn't live like you shouldn't do something just because you want to get validation from other people, right? And so I was trying to explain that to her, and she said that you don't understand. That's what it means to be in the family, and whatever weird family anecdotal story or context she was telling me. And I said, Mom, I don't think you understand. I told her I think to live like you have to base your value on other people's action or opinion about your soup, that is exhausting. That means people around you are constantly pressured to validate you and your self-worth. And that is a very exhausting pressure on the people who live with you. And I'm not sure if she gets it, you know. I didn't really cut into that much detail about it, but long story short, for the most of my life, I was raised by my mom, and I've noticed that is where I get a lot of my people pleasing tendency, is modeled from my mom. But you know, as you get older, you get more wiser, you learn that your parents aren't exactly great models, you know. Not that I'm expecting anything perfect from them, but eventually you recognize some of these flaws as you gain more life experience, and that's one of them that I've noticed and I have learned to not do as much. But I'm sure some case it will still pop up, my people pleasing tendency, but I've gone a lot better at controlling it. And so I kind of set my piece, and you know, I walked back to my place. And so we were, and then she ended up coming to the back, you know, whether that's to water her green onions or to check something. She stopped by my door, and she knocked, and I asked, "Did you want to come in?" Because, like I said, we have separate units, right? And she came in, and so she came in and she sat down, and you know, whatever she's thinking in her mind, she didn't say anything, but she sat down and she notices that like the my rice cooker was plugged in, and she asked if my rice cooker is on, and I said no. But for some reason, when my rice cooker's plugged into the outlet, right, it will display a red light indicating that it's connected to the power, but it doesn't use any additional electricity because it's not there's no task assigned to the rice cooker. And she's like, "Oh, you should unplug it." And this is like not like the first time she tells me this. And so I said, "Mom, does it bother you that my rice cooker is plugged in?" Um, you know, and she's like, "Oh no, it doesn't bother me." And okay, uh, my next sentence was like, "Oh, why do you always mention it?" But then something, I guess, just struck me today, and I said, "Mom, you're a controlling person, huh?" And then she just kind of, and that was the exact same tone I kind of said it. It was a very calm, neutral tone. That's kind of how I talk to my parents. I've gotten a lot more patient talking to them because they're old, and I just have a better control how things react when I speak in a certain tone. And so my mom actually got really defensive, and you know, after she got defensive, I just kind of giggle, and then she started giggling, and then I said, you know, I know I hit the truth because usually when people react to statements defensively, it's chances are you hit the nerve. You know, it's the truth, right? Because otherwise people are just like indifferent. You know, if it's not true, then it doesn't really bother them. You know, and so you know, she was laughing, and I was like, "Oh, I can't control you." And it's like, "Yeah, I know you can't control me, but if you can't control me, then why do you always suggest or tell me that I should do this, right?" And you know, the expression I used was like, you know, does your hand itch to like want to unplug it for me? You know, it sounds a lot better in Chinese. It makes a lot more sense in Chinese. But anyway, so after that, I went on my walk. Wanted to do a walk by the nearby reservoir that I like to alternate. It's between a park that I go to, a reservoir I go to, or a golf stadium that I usually walk around after dinner. And so I was walking, walking my loop around the reservoir, and surprisingly today there was a lot of people there, a lot of people walking, which is good. You love to see people come out and exercise, and you see people bring their dogs, their pets. It's quite friendly, and you see people running, which is awesome. And I'm usually very, people watching. I just enjoy people watching. And so while I was on this walk, I was listening to my music, Lane 8. That's the latest DJ music that I'm obsessed with. Just a very chill beat that I don't know, just makes great for walking. And I was walking, I was kind of just it just kind of hit me that I think like life is inherently pointless. Life is inherently pointless where people will go to work to make money. They use the money to support their life, or if they have extras, they'll invest. It'll become a lifestyle purchase, upgrade, better car, vacation, whatever, right? Etc. etc. Right? And it dawned on me that no matter, it didn't really dawn on me, but I feel like I was reminded of these things. I don't know. I feel like I was just reminded of these things, that life is inherently kind of pointless. It's doing the same thing over and over again. All right, like I said, earning stuff and then spending it and then doing it over and over again. And that there's really no purpose in this. And as I was having these thoughts, right, the slow creep of nihilism kind of crawled back into my mind. And I remember that there was a period of time when I felt that way about life, where that life is pointless, that there was no point of living, really, no point of living. And I'm not trying to turn this into a suicidal depression, vibe, but it's just living without a purpose, right? And it kind of, like I said, these thoughts kind of reminded me of who I was when I was going through some of those times, when I was smoking a lot of weed, when I was people watching, when I was realizing that this world that we live is just like that. Because at the time when I was learning about these or having these thoughts, I was a behavior therapist for school, for a company. And so I realized that I've owned X amount of money, right? It wasn't a lot working as a behavior therapist back a couple years back. And I realized that if this job pays a lot more money, life would still be doing the same thing. It would just be, I would get to pick up a couple extra toys under my belt, but life would be inherently doing the same thing: working, paying, working, sustaining, working, traveling, right? Just experiences. But I just feel like, yeah, having more money would probably net the same thing, but just in a bigger magnitude, right? You get to do a little bit more. You get to have a bigger toy, right? And it reminded me that sometimes, or actually it reminded me that right now, the situation I'm in, that despite where I'm at financially, despite everything, I feel really full. I feel really full that every day I get to spend time with God. Every day I read his words. Every day I eat the bread, the daily bread, which is the scriptures. And for some reason, I feel like God was showing me the contrast of this duality, that who I was and who I am now. That truly, as I was walking, right, that this thought came to my head, that life without Christ is empty. Life without Jesus is empty. And I think I'm in like my third, fourth year in my Christian walk. I think I was saved 2021. So right now it's 2015. Sorry, 2021. Right now it's 2025. I wish it was 2015. The music would have been sounded a lot better. No offense to people, growing up in the time and age now. I feel like everything is in the world, just to sum it up, it's pretty messed up. But like I said, having this duality thought of, you know, life without Christ is really meaningless. And I've heard this phrase before when I was earlier in my walk. It's just that I feel like I didn't truly grasp that concept until today, until I was able to draw the comparison of who I am now and how I'm living my life now versus who I was back then when I was a new Christian, when I wasn't a Christian, right? How I value and see the world is a lot different now. And back then, like I said, I've heard this phrase, but I wasn't really fully to be able to understand what that means, that life without Christ is empty, until now. That really, I think it's so important to live in Christ because he gives us a purpose. And I feel like the now, right now, sorry, the me right now that's speaking about it doesn't do full justice of explaining why I feel this way, why I feel that life without Christ is empty. I am not, I feel like I don't have the intellectual capacity right now to explain it in a relatable way to non-believers why I understood life without Christ is empty. And I think that's where I want to leave this video off, is just that the me right now understood why life without Jesus is empty. But I think the next step for me to do is to understand why I feel this way, draw a contrast as to why I feel this way to the old Daniel who did not live in Christ, and try to explain that in the video. And yeah, I just ended up finishing my walk, and no ice cream today, so I ended up just driving home and making some pasta and steak and ate. And so, guys, I know this video was slightly longer. I try to keep my videos within 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minute range. But I feel like I needed to get this out of my chest, as a way to record my spiritual growth journey, and where my Christian walk is with God, with Christ. And yeah, I'm proud, and I'm proud of where I came from and where I'm at now, and I can't wait to see what God has in plan for me. Remember, guys, God never forsakes us. It's usually us who walks off the path, and sometimes you'll recognize it when people are lost, because it really sounds like they're lost when I hear some people talk. But anyways, guys, I'm gonna ramble some more if I just keep recording. So guys, wherever you're watching this, whenever you're watching this, I hope you have a blessed day. And remember, God is always with us, right? With God, I think this is one of my brother's favorite quote, because he wrote it on my baptism letter note. He says, with God, anything is possible. So I'm gonna dedicate this video to that quote and to him, because I'm thinking about him right now, obviously. So guys, see you guys on the next video. Peace.